Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a new Batman Deadpool comic that's out, and I don't know. A couple people have been asking me, what do I think about it? It's Batman Deadpool, and then you got a couple of short stories along with that. The one I think I probably in a weird way enjoyed the most is probably the Wonder Woman Captain America story. I thought that was actually I don't know, that would hook me the most. It's funny because I see a lot of people that come on YouTube and they just bitch, right? It's comics are bad, this is bad, 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 bad. And my channel, if I'm being completely honest with you, has more negative than positive, I would say, because it's like comics should be doing this. Comics, here's something for comics to do, which naturally entails that, they're not doing it today. So it's that as a result skews negative. I'd like to think that I'm not just in here like, bullshit, wokey woke. But, I recognize that it's negative. And I don't, I've done videos and I do videos about here's something I think's done really right. And I probably need to do more things in the industry that are going well or that I think have been done properly or good. The challenge is when you talk about the business of comics, there's not a lot that fits in that category. It's not zero, but there's not a lot. So with Batman Deadpool, it's kind of a little bit of a weird mixed bag because there are definitely some good things about it and there's some negative things about it. And so let's start positive here. A good thing about it is one of the things I think comics struggle with, or a lot of the creators struggle with, is the idea of fan service, the idea of doing something that is really designed to just, it's wish fulfillment for fans. It's giving the fans what they want, what they say they want, what they get excited about. And a crossover between a Marvel and a DC character is definitely something like that. It's that people like to fantasy book in their minds, what would happen if this DC character met this Marvel character and what would that be like? And by and large, comic companies don't do that because the rights and the money and all the rest of that stuff is extremely complicated and hard to do, and it creates problems for future distribution and everything else. It's a difficult book to deal with. Now they struck a decent business deal, and so I guess that's another thing they kind of did right. In this instance, they made the financials and made the book publishing kind of work in a unique way. So that was, that there's a positive there. But by and large, doing something that is silly doesn't really matter. Certainly, I'm sure is not, creatively fulfilling from a telling some new kind of story. I mean, if you're working on Deadpool meets Batman, you're not exactly, you're not exactly writing the next Watchmen. And, up to, and I guess spoilers a little bit for the book, Deadpool gets Jokerized. And so as a result, is you get to see what that looks like with the Joker serum in him. And so there's just stuff in there that is very much kind of pure wish fulfillment, pure fan service. And good on comics for doing that. Good on Marvel and DC for recognizing that, hey, there's money to be made by just giving people what they want some of the time. You don't have to do it all the time, but, some of the time. From the company that resists any hint of Spider-Man married, that's not fair. Of course, you do have the Spider-Man Mary Jane in the Ultimate Universe, and, Hickman's been doing that. But for two companies that often, really bulk at just giving people what they want, it's nice to, have them, do it once in a while or once. So I think that's a good thing. Art, yeah, by and large, good. I think, there's areas where the art feels rushed. Like you read the whole issue, including the backups, and there's areas where it just feels like less than passionate is probably the wrong way to say it. But, to be honest, I felt the same way we had Todd doing Batman Spawn for a couple pages. I think in many cases, when you're in the Godzilla meets the Marvel Universe or Batman versus TMNT or anything else, you often don't get the best out of the artist. But, they did have decent creators on this, both writers and artists. You had more, well-known people on it. And so that's kind of cool. I can't stand Kelly Thompson, but I'm sure it was a treat for her to be able to do Jeff the Land Shark again. And I mean, I absolutely would like to blow that character up with fire, but I can't deny that, Marvel Rivals has given that character a second life. And so, there you go. I think Jeff the Land Shark, I think, is overall negative for Marvel. A jokey animal character that is, I don't know. None of that's good long term for their business, but um, in terms of something to license off, make some money that way, sure. It's just there will come a point when Jeff the Land Shark is joining the Avengers, and all of you will be you'll be like, oh yeah, they've gone too far here. Anyway, um, but you had decent creators on this. You made an effort. Again, some of the art looked a little rushed, a little forced, but they still paid some money to get that done. I think I hate variant covers, but I think they put some good work in there, and that became part of how they got their finances all worked out. So a lot of decent stuff there. In terms of the negative, I mean, you could nitpick this thing all to death, and so I'm gonna make this video more positive than negative. There's only one, in my mind, big negative you have here, in that while on one hand, yes, it's good to do the fan service for an issue, on the other hand, nothing here really drives anything forward. And, Marvel and DC will both hype this. It's a strong seller. It's made money. It's going to be one of the top books, if not the top book of the month. And all that's cool. And retailers will appreciate that because they get a buck. But there's no longevity in here. You put a lot of effort into doing some fan service, and that's good. But next month, you don't have fans. You don't have this fan service. So what are you going to do next month? And you really kind of wish that the comic publishers were prioritizing or putting the money into books and series that, were things that they're going to make money off of month after month after month. Like, if you're going to do a big push for a book, it makes sense to, put your best foot forward with a Thor book or an Avengers book or a Green Lantern book or something where you actually can go, hey, Batman's always going to sell, Spider-Man's always going to sell. Let's put a big creative team. I mean, frankly, this is the same criticism I'd have for Hush 2. Yeah, I'm sure it's cool for Jim Lee to occasionally draw Batman. And when I say occasionally, I mean that's the speed at which the issues are coming out occasionally. But, I'm sure that's cool. But for a character like Green Lantern or Aquaman or hell, Hawkman, if Garth Ennis, you got him to do a book, and I mean Garth Ennis will do any book if you give him money. But if you put Garth Ennis and Jim Lee on Hawkman for 4 issues, and then based on Jim Lee's schedule, it would come out over the span of 2 years. But if you did that, look at the elevation that Hawkman would get, that would then be bigger for DC's business, year after year. You'd get a bump and a wave off of a B and a C level character, and this is exactly what DC and Marvel should be doing. I think. I'll give an example of something else that's working at the moment or has worked. It's not. It's past its prime. But the Jed MacKay Moon Knight is a case where it came in. He got some good critical acclaim for the title, and Marvel being Marvel, that's usually the point where they immediately whisk the creative team off the title, like cancel it in 3 issues, and then get the guy somewhere else. It's like, hey, something's working now. Immediately shift him to something else and put on a lesser creative team and reboot it. Let's see what happens. And they have let Jed MacKay continue on Moon Knight. They have let the creative team more or less continue on that title, and as a result, they're getting a nice, good, big run out of it, and they're starting to bank money. So now you've got people who come in and they're just buying Moon Knight because they've gotten into the habit of doing it. They are now acclimated to, I buy Moon Knight every month, and so that's good for comic shops because they've got some loyalty and some longevity in this title. It's good for the publisher because they now have some reliability on something that goes sell. And I think, if you're going to put a big promotional marketing push into something, yeah, Batman, Deadpool, but this isn't going to sell more Deadpool comics. It's not going to sell more Batman comics than they already are. And so what have you really done? You've spiked sales, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, fan service is good. Retailers will appreciate it. But next month, we've got to spike sales again. And how are we going to do it? And so I think while these things are good and net positive that they're doing it, the fact that it doesn't really lead to anything more, I think, is a problem. And over time becomes a bigger problem. like I said, the stories were nothing to write home about. And when I say nothing to write home about, I mean they more or less sucked. They weren't bad. They had nothing to them. They didn't. If you miss them, you're not missing out on a key part of Batman or Deadpool lore. And frankly, when you're crossing over two companies, how could you, really install canon in that way? But it just at the end of the day, I think we need more things in comics that are leading to bigger things. So not just servicing the now, but building to tomorrow. What did you think of this issue? Did you buy it? Did you like it? What stories did you love? What stories did you hate? Am I completely off base here? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.